for conversation, I'm going to pick The Conversation. Um,
Nice.
Welcome to Recotopia, a happy home for recommended movies, TV shows, music, video games, foodstuffs, and more from two people you can definitely trust. Trustability varies by region, no guarantees implied. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Atkinson and Aaron Dicer.
Hello, everybody. It is episode 114 of Recotopia, and our first one without Jeremy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But we're good too. We're
Love
we're
us.
awesome too. Yeah, exactly. I'm Chris Atkinson, joined by Aaron Dicer.
Hi to Leo Cinerinos.
And today's big recommend is Hundreds of Beavers, completing the Decades of Comedy series that I have started. I don't know what I'm going to do after this, but that's going to be our big recommend. And once again, thank you, chat, for coming in and watching us talk movies on a Tuesday. I will go ahead with the small recommends.
It's no big deal.
Itty bitty living space.
It's so small and light.
It's small, it's tiny, it's petite, it's wee.
Here, and I'll start with a movie that opened over the weekend. I watched The Fall Guy, and this movie made more headlines for not doing enough at the box office. Aaron and I were talking about this beforehand, that you might hear in the outtakes later. But it's really good, and I hope that it finds a good audience over the next month or so. And everything. This is Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. Ryan Gosling plays a stuntman that is in love with this camera operator, Emily Blunt, and he does a stunt that causes him to be out of commission for 18 months. And when he is back, when he gets back into the fold, he gets hired by a producer, one of the same producers played by Hannah Waddingham. Everybody in the supporting cast is great, by the way. Hannah Waddingham, Aaron Taylor Johnson playing somebody that's like Matthew McConaughey. Winston Duke is great in this. But when he gets hired back onto this production, a series of events leads to him being going into a hotel room and finding a dead stunt man, and that he is the one that's going to be accused of killing him. And he doesn't, I don't know if he's necessarily really a detective in this, but he's kind of trying to find out what's going on through all of this while he gets chased around and everything. But this movie, you'll hear it a lot, is a big love letter to movies, action movies in general. It's very fun, very funny. It's again another movie that's way too long. It's 2 hours and 15, something like that. It could have probably used a trim, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
I had a blast. It's just, there's something that I just love about it. Just a simple comedy that's just, I like the people in it, and I like hanging out. This, has the added benefit of having some really cool insight into the stunt process. Like that was kind of fun to see. And it's actually interesting because it's kind of an homage to more of an old school stunt style, which still happens in a lot of movies, but it's not like the John Wickification of stunts, where it's like the gunfighting and the, that kind of stuff. It's like old school fisticuffs, sword play, jumping over bars, that kind of stuff. Cars that are doing ramp stunts and like all that kind of fun stuff. There's one moment where they're just like, you did 8 rolls. That was an 8 roller, man. That record will never be broken. But yeah, I had a blast with Fall Guy. Ryan Gosling is just kind of in the sweet spot right now. It feels like he can do no wrong right now. But yeah, and he and Emily are great together. So it was a lot of fun.
And yes, it is based on an original TV series, as one of our commenters has brought up.
Sure was.
It has almost nothing to do with that original series whatsoever. Although Lee Majors does make a little cameo appearance and everything, but yeah, very fun.
Yep, tons of fun. I will start with a TV show. Conan O'Brien Must Go recently debuted on Max, maybe about a month ago. I think there's 4 or 5 episodes. Each is a travel log type adventure for Conan. He's going to different countries to meet fans. If you listen to his podcast, you know that they do they have 2 basically weekly podcasts. One is where they interview a celebrity, that kind of thing. And then the other, they interview a fan. It's a little bit shorter and they just connect via Zoom or whatever. And he talks to one of his fans. Well, everyone he's going to visit in this show is one of the fans he's previously connected with on his podcast. So, they pick some people from different countries. The countries are like Ireland, which of course is like a homegoing for him. That's where his relatives come from. There is, I'm trying to remember, Thailand. There's they do a trip to Thailand that's really, really interesting. And I think the easiest way to decide if you're going to like this is, do you like Conan O'Brien? Because that's what it is. It's Conan doing his shtick. Like, in the Thailand one, they do, that he goes and does Muay Thai with a Muay Thai fighter. And, of course, they have this thing where he ends up besting him, and then the guy calls in his 10 Muay Thai guys, and he lines up for a kick and just kicks them all down the line and knocks them all out, and then you see him throw the fake leg down and walk off kind of thing. It's just that kind of silly surrealist kind of humor that you're going to get a lot here. I also love his crowd work. A lot of this is that kind of idea where you're just talking with people and gauging your response based on how they respond. And he's just so self-deprecating, so fun. I really enjoyed this show. I had a really good time watching these episodes.
I watched, I'm really tired one night. I watched the beginning of the first episode of this, and it was something that I think I can get into, but I haven't quite gotten back to it yet. Talk about a guy who had a small renaissance once he started doing the publicity for this show. When he did Hot Ones, which is the best Hot Ones I think I've ever seen in my life. When he did that one, suddenly on Twitter, it was here's some classic moments from Conan. This is when Conan was awesome. This is, and it's yeah, he has been pretty awesome for a while. I mean, I always gravitated towards his Simpsons career more than his live, TV talk shows career. But still, he's just a great comedian, great entertainer, and I'll have to catch up on this at some point for sure.
His podcast is great. Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend is what it's called if you want to look it up. It's really good. It's really fun to listen to. So in fact, you talk about the Hot Ones episode. The latest episode of Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend is his doctor coming on the show to talk about the Hot Ones episode. So
good. All right, now we're getting back into, because we're in a twofer podcast. We're doing 2 small recommends at this point. So my other small recommend comes from 1966. I went onto the Criterion channel and watched John Frankenheimer's Seconds, which is about a middle-aged man who gets a note while he's getting on a train to tell him to go to this address. And then he gets a call from somebody telling him, hey, I'm your friend that you thought was dead. I'm talking to you. And he proves that he proves that he was that childhood friend. He says, you need to do this because your life is not going anywhere at this point. Who's going to miss you, basically, is what it came down to. And this guy's married, and he has a daughter who just got married, and they're about to have a kid and all this. And, but he is convinced to go and do whatever this is. He goes into it basically blind. They don't tell him anything. But he goes in, and they go through all this whole procedure for him. And basically what it comes down to is they fake his death, and they turn him into someone new and someone who is already established in the field that they are established in. And this time, so when they convert this guy, they convert him into Rock Hudson, who you can see in the image there on the screen. It's not for people listening, but for people watching. And he turns into Rock Hudson. They make him, he's basically a a well-received painter, even though he's not really a painter or whatever, but he's already going to be in this life where he is accepted and he has all the freedom in the world, quote unquote. And of course, there's a lot of, there's not as much freedom as he thinks there is. And because he still has his brain from his previous life, he still tries to take life on the way he did beforehand, and he doesn't really take advantage of this and everything. And so it's a really fascinating study into what would you do if you were to be given another chance like this, a rebirth, so to speak. I feel like there's a lot of the Matrix in this movie, even though it's not as sci-fi. But you'll be thinking of themes from the Matrix when you watch this movie. It's very stripped down, of course, but John Frankenheimer, man, could do no wrong in the 60s. He Manchurian Candidate, 7 Days in May, and this movie, and it was just on a roll. But yeah, this is a fascinating movie. I would recommend it.
I'll check it out. You said it's on Criterion?
Yeah.
I remember I just recently finally watched the Manchurian Candidate. I'd never seen it. It was on my list of shame, and found it really engaging and interesting. Oh, yeah. And so, yeah, this sounds like it would be right up my alley. So I'll definitely check that out.
I think you will definitely dig it.
My other small recommend for today is a recent movie that popped into theaters. I think you can still check it out in theaters. Challengers. This is the tennis sex movie, as I've heard it called. So this is Luca Guadagnino's latest. A little bit. Just a tad of my history with Luca. I don't like his movies. I haven't I haven't really liked a single one of them. I've respected things about them. Call Me by Your Name maybe had the most stuff where I'm like, I get that there's good filmmaking here. I'm just not interested in this world. I'm not, connected to it. It's not moving me in any big ways. This is his first movie that I came away from going, I dig that. That's really interesting. I want to keep thinking about it. I want to keep talking about it. I think there's some really interesting stuff here. Zendaya, Mike Faist, and Josh O'Connor are this kind of really interesting love triangle that the movie is jumping around in time to give you the information you need about how they are all connected together. Art and Patrick are the guys' names. They are friends from way back, played doubles, together, did really well together. And then Zendaya shows up and becomes kind of this catalyst to pit them against each other. And it is interesting how the movie deals with that, how it moves on. I think ever since West Side Story, I think Mike Faist is just such an interesting actor. He has this presence about him that I just don't like. It seems different than a lot of other actors that I've seen, and he's really good in this. Zendaya, of course, is amazing. Josh O'Connor's great as well. But I think the reason I come away with giving this a recommend and really enjoying it is, number one, it is produced. So this soundtrack is going to be legendary. Like, it reminds me of like when Tron Legacy came out and everybody was like, this is the greatest soundtrack I've ever heard. Like, I think it's Trent Reznor doing this one. And I think he has just absolutely nailed it. And it adds to this movie in a really unique and interesting way because they use the soundtrack very cleverly, I think, in this movie. And then secondly, the movie has something I think really important to say about relationships. Using tennis as a metaphor is not something new necessarily, but the way it uses it is really, really interesting to me. And it has an ending that, whether you like it or not, you will be talking about. I loved it because it's the only way I thought this movie could end where I would like the movie. And I was surprised that they were able to pull it off. So, yeah, I think this is a really interesting film and shot really inventively. And all of a sudden, maybe I'm a Luca fan. I don't know, but it's really good.
I don't know. Somebody sent me, I haven't seen this movie, but somebody sent me a thing talking about how all the Spider-Man ladies went on to do tennis movies. Basically.
Oh, yes, I've seen this.
Kirsten Dunst went on to do Wimbledon, and then Emma Stone did the Battle of the Sexes movie, and now Zendaya does this one.
Yes.
All right. We are going on to our big recommend, which is Hundreds of Beavers.
I'm fine. It's just that you're so big.
It's so huge.
It's a good rule, but this is bigger than rules.
It's bigger on the inside.
Is it? I noticed.
This movie, I believe, came out this year officially, even though it says 2022 on the IMDb. It's probably been hitting a festival circuit for a really long time.
Actually, this movie debuted at the Fantastic Fest that I went to in 2022, but it debuted virtually. So it was one of those virtual ones that, like, if you go to the website, you could watch it there. So like they didn't put it on a screen, so I didn't see it, and I didn't really check out a lot of the virtual movies. I just thought that was funny that that's actually the first time it made its public appearance was at Fantastic Fest in 22.
All right. Well, this movie is hard to write a synopsis for, obviously. It's basically it's almost silent, and a lot of the things are not plot related, but then they are in a weird way plot related. And I had to figure out what I was going to take out of my synopsis and whatnot. So I'm going to do my best, folks. And if I miss something or if I whatever, I'm sorry, but this is how this would take forever to talk about. So we're gonna do our synopsis best we can. Our movie opens up on our hero, and it's either Jean or Jean or John. I'm gonna go with John because I don't want to say this French pronunciation all the time. And from what I understand, different parts of the world, you can go with either of these. So I'm gonna go with John.
You can call it a croissant.
Yes, exactly. But his name is John Kayak, played by Ryland Brixton Cole-Tews, who has an impressive IMDb picture, by the way. He owns an apple orchard named Acme Applejack. That kind of tells you what kind of movie we're about to get in, because Acme always signals that we're about to watch basically what is a cartoon. He is having a grand old time serving his apple cider to the locals. Then one day, a beaver gnaws the legs of both of his huge cider barrels, and one of them falls to an uncertain fate. And then a snowflake causes the other one to loose itself down the hill, where it crashes into his house, and the explosion of cider and flames burns down his entire orchard. Now he's cold and alone, and he has no source of income. The first thing he tries to do is build a fire, but the wind suspiciously has it in for him to blow the fire out no matter how he tries to block it with his body, changing directions and even sentiently reversing course at one point. But a theme of the movie is that he keeps getting better at things. So this is the beginner's journey. He'll learn how to fix this problem eventually. And that's the thing. You'll keep on seeing different additions to things as it goes along. And then there's things that you will completely forget about that somehow come back into this thing. The next morning, he tries to get a drink from the cold river nearby, only to find he is downstream from a peeing raccoon. He's extremely hungry, so the next step is trying to hunt rabbits, but he doesn't know how. He chases after one to no avail, and then he gets an idea to build a sexy snow bunny with its boobs hanging out. This does attract hetero bunnies, but he still has no idea how to actually capture them. He even tries the old boob turned into a bowling ball, turned into a boulder technique, but he doesn't have the best aim. And then he learns how to properly bowl. The finger holes make a convenient escape for the bunnies he's trying to catch. Then when two sexy snow bunnies fail to attract two gay bunnies, he carves a snow carrot to attract them. But physics strikes again when the carrot rolls awkward. Done with the bunnies, he fails with the beavers, and then he tries to steal eggs, only to be thwarted by a woodpecker that doesn't seem to like him very much. And you think that they're done with this woodpecker, and they just keep adding things for the woodpecker throughout this whole movie. Indeed. Throwing boulders off of a cliff successfully kills a bunny, but it sinks it in the frozen river. Then John, I'm going to say John and Gene interchangeably, apparently. Then John sees fish, but is unable to catch one using only his finger. But don't worry, he sees a beaver shaving down wood with his teeth. So it's only natural that he could shave wood down with his teeth and make a proper fish lure with it. Of course, the fish aren't interested in that. So he tries a briar. I think that's a briar, some sort of like.
Yeah.
And this successfully catches a fish, because the fish is actually a sock and not a real fish. He celebrates, and when he sees his snowman friend not celebrating, he sticks two branches in his body to indicate that he too is happy about the fish catching. But it's a too early celebration because the woodpecker ain't done with him even now. Eventually, John catches several fish using bloody fingers. Soon after, John encounters an expert trapper played by Wes Tank, who might be Santa Claus, riding around on a sleigh and several dogs and a giant sack of animal carcasses. He follows the trapper to a merchant's house, and here we are introduced to our other secondary characters. An always misfiring tobacco-spitting merchant, played by Doug Mancheski, and his daughter, the furrier, played by Olivia Graves. The merchant wants the trapper to marry his daughter, but the daughter indicates that she will have nothing to do with him, and the trapper indicates that he's actually married to the wilderness. John notices a menu board that tells him specifically what he can buy if he brings either money or a certain amount and specific type of animal carcasses. John's fish bags him a coin, which he uses to get a tiny knife. The daughter seems to love John. This knife isn't great, but it's better than what he's worked with so far. He uses the knife to cut his clothing into a small snare for animals, and he's able to carve better wood objects to attract the animals. He once again tries to go after the rabbits, but it's like everything else he does. He's not an expert at using a snare trap, and the rabbits simply take the items without getting trapped. And just when he thinks he's got that down, he makes too much noise in the snow. And when he solves that, he steps on a pine cone and yells so loud it scares all the rabbits. He tries to encircle one rabbit in a bunch of heavy icicles, much like what happened to him earlier. And at first, it looks like he got one of them, but the movie has a perspective joke for us in the store because the icicles only went in front of the bunny and not around him. The bunny plops into the snow and scurries off like Bugs Bunny used to do. So it's time to make a map. After his pen doesn't work, he finds goose shit to do the trick. His map is very simple. It tells him where 4 landmarks are. After this, he concocts a plan to cover up the holes that the rabbits use to get underground. He sets up a snare directly over the uncovered hole as 3 bored raccoons look on. John now slides his feet in the snow, looking to get stabbed by a pine cone so that he can deliver that yelp that makes the rabbits scurry everywhere. One rabbit using the underground ends up going through the snare hole and actually gets trapped, but one of the raccoons eats the bunny before John can get there. The next idea is to put an enclosure of spikes that the raccoons can't breach around the hole, but one of the unfed raccoons simply takes one of the stakes out of the ground and it is implied stabs the bunny with it, and now there are 2 raccoons with full bellies, while a third one looks super disappointed. The third trap, which is built to a parody version of the score from Psycho, ends up requiring the rest of his clothes to create, traps the disappointed raccoon, who is obviously too stupid to let the rabbit get trapped first. But this allows him to kill it and have the furrier casually butcher him up a raccoon suit. He even gets measured. On his way there, John trades his knife for a Native American fur trapper's snowshoes. The Native American fur trapper is played by Louis Rico. Now that John has his suit, we can finally go to the opening credits. Alas, he falls into a beaver trap shortly afterwards, breaking a leg, but is saved by the master trapper. It's here we find out the trapper has an entirely too complex map for mere mortals to decipher, complete with a useful key that tells you what animal or object attracts certain other animals. This trapper has everything down, finds animals everywhere he leaves traps. But there's one issue. There are wolves out there who want to kill his dogs. And because this is a movie, the wolves start killing the trapper's dogs immediately, one by one, reducing dogs playing poker to dog playing solitaire during the camping scenes. Eventually, that dog and the trapper are killed, giving John the opportunity to become the new master trapper with his newfound knowledge. The trapper makes sure John has his map before he's dragged out of a tree by wolves. He buries the trapper, and he's so good at gnawing wood at this point that he's able to make a cross with Jesus Christ on it. Some dog tracks lead John to find the corpse of a dog complete with a serial killer spray of playing cards coming out of the neck. I don't know what this is, parodying something, and I can't remember what it is. You could maybe Game of Thrones or something. I don't know. It's something. This is a parody of something. I can't remember what it is. John collects the cards to trade later. He then finds the wolf cave. When he tries to see where this is located on the indecipherable trapper's map, he can't find it, which leads to John wiping away the trapper's years of work to create his own special map. But it goes to show that map was only good for the person who created it. Sometime after this, John follows rabbit tracks that tell a whole love story that includes Kama Sutra-esque sex positions indented in the snow, ends in adultery, and eventually tragedy, as John stumbles on 2 orphan bunnies that he eventually eats. John creates a system where snowmen become fishermen. And at this point in the movie, nothing he's setting up works because he hasn't solved every little issue. But this is another part of the movie that shows a simple concept that gets improved every time you see it until he finally comes up with a surefire solution. John trades the playing cards for 2 coins, which are used to buy a rope. The merchant realizes that these were the trapper's playing cards, and there is a makeshift funeral complete with a sleigh and candles representing the trapper and his dogs. The merchant now puts the engagement ring up for grabs for a mysterious price. A beaver trap that John set up trapped a beaver, but it dragged the trap all the way to a cliff where it fell and died. John starts dragging it around and eventually trades it for a pipe. It also is the most useful beaver ever. The merchant's daughter refills his castor oil. There's a candlestick and meat. They have a romantic dinner, all out of this beaver's body. We are introduced to a Sherlock Holmes and Watson pair of beavers trying to solve the mystery of all the beaver deaths, and they keep seeing strange shapes in the snow that they can't explain. John takes the Native Americans' hatchet pipe and starts creating more elaborate traps, which, true to the movie's form, do not work right away. But then simply luring the beavers onto a frozen pond and using their lack of friction against them, he's able to kill a couple more when he chops a tree down on them. John forgets that you should never touch something metal with your tongue in the cold. We're basically in the middle of a long montage of failed traps that John gets better at. At one point, he sneezes an icicle out that kills one of the wolves. The wolf and 2 beavers get him some bear traps, and he trades one of them to the Native American fur trader for a fish trap. After this, he's becoming an almost expert at killing everything. The almost got 'em start turning into barely got 'ems. Sometimes they work too well, as a spring-loaded trap spins so hard that it creates a wind tunnel. John gets so good at beaver trapping that he can play pool on the frozen pond by knocking 4 beavers into holes using 1 boulder and some well-timed ricochets. He's also doing some trial runs on the wolf cave by using a version of the spring-loaded trap that he ties himself to. And whenever he gets in danger in the cave, he can simply whistle, and the woodpecker will come peck a counterweight to sling him out of the cave. After John is able to buy the gun from the merchant, he asks his daughter to marry her, but the merchant still thinks John is a no-good drunk, so he gives him an impossible task. In the movie's very obvious roll credits moment, John can only marry his daughter if he brings him hundreds of beavers. This is now reflected on the merchant's menu board, which now extends all the way into the woods to reflect the hundreds of beavers required. The detective beavers witness John's killing spree, which they report to the dam headquarters. A whole bunch of beavers are now following John as he goes into the wolf cave. John sets up a decoy. The beavers make a lot of noise destroying the decoy. John, safely outside, starts a Rube Goldberg chain of events. Whistles for the woodpecker, which pecks the snowman counterweight, revealing a trapped fly, which attracts a frog that is being held by a trapped skunk, which trips the spring-loaded tree and sends the skunk and frog flying into one of the wind tunnel things, which redirects them into the wolf cave. And then it's wolves versus beavers in a cave match filled with skunk smoke. John shoots the icicles above the cave, trapping everyone inside, leading John to do the famous Jeremiah Johnson meme. John, with his hundreds of beavers in tow, goes to the merchant, but finds the detectives have set up a trap of their own when he goes to visit the merchant, whose store is nothing but a 3D cardboard cutout of the real thing. I guess it's a 2D, but it looks very 3D and freeze frame, like a paused freeze frame. A cutout which falls on John. The detectives and the other beavers take everything from him and go back to the dam. John now goes to the dam and get back what is his. During his scouting of the dam, we find out John has discovered a way to make an icicle telescope by grinding pepper into his face and causing him to sneeze one out. He's able to snuff out a curious beaver when his raccoon hat lands on top of one, and he's able to whistle the woodpecker over to peck him to death. He uses the carcass as a disguise to sneak in. It's not a very good one, but it confuses the guards enough that he's able to break a hole in the frozen river and find a tunnel inside the dam. From here, John works his way through the dam through the complex machines inside, ducking out of sight wherever he can. The Beavers have constructed a dam that is absolutely insane. It even uses John's missing cider barrel, which John practically has sex with when he finds it. Alas, he is soon discovered and a chase occurs. The movie uses another clever perspective joke here when John is riding on a log down some water and we see 3 beavers jump toward him. John prepares for the worst, but the camera angle changes and we find out the beavers were 3 rows behind John. When the beavers do finally reach him, they jump straight into a beam that blocks them just at the right time. Just as he is surrounded, John continues to find ways to elude the beavers, leading to a great sequence involving a rolling log with 2 beavers flanking him on the edges while he's in the middle. They have to avoid beams, jumping over one successfully, but then one of the beavers mistimes a jump, leaving just one. However, this creates imbalance, which John solves by getting on the other end of the log. He then uses his mastery of physics to upend the remaining beaver. That very physics ends up betraying him, though, and the beavers do finally catch him. Now it's time for a trial. The prosecution obviously has an airtight case here, but apparently the offense isn't just really about killing the beavers, but they come up with the reasons for the odd shapes they've been seeing in the snow that are hilariously incorrect. Point more to a mad scientist creating mutant beavers rather than simply trapping them and selling them. Although it does start with a whole story about why the beaver trade is important and everything. I thought that was funny too. The Beavers have given John a seemingly very good appointed attorney, but he trips and falls, and I guess he dies. I don't know. Leaving him with, this is one part of the movie I wish they could have, what is the defense for John here, really? I would have loved to have seen a real defense. Leaves him with someone not so good who is constantly referring to notes and is boring. John is sent to die James Bond style by being strapped to a table while a circular saw approaches his crotch. He thinks he's saved by the resurrection of the master trapper, but we find out that's a beaver in a costume, and he wants to make a similar coat out of John. John's knowledge of rope knots allows him to somehow Jedi one of them loose, and he Jedis all of them loose, and the fight is on at this point. They're no match for him, and even when the cops come in, complete with a Keystone Cops parody, John takes on the whole crew. One of the beavers ends up on the cutting table, and John flips a lever that causes the circular saw to slice right through it. Then he punches the face right off of one beaver, leaving a skull, and he pulls the entire skeleton out, leading the beavers to stop even trying. Once again on the run, John discovers a new part of the dam where he finds out the beavers have been preparing a rocket ship and astronauts and everything. John sends one of the beavers spiraling toward the ship, which has one of its legs knocked out. The rocket ends up destroying the dam and flames out, which mirrors the stuff that happened at the beginning when the beavers took John's apple orchard out. All the remaining beavers chase after John. There's a terrific sequence involving a chase on sheets of ice where the beavers have cut theirs into ships and trains. John starts a giant snowball effect by pushing his beaver death pile towards the merchant. He gets on a sled, and the beavers give chase in what is like the speeder chase in Return of the Jedi. At one point, John is able to shoot a trap that allows him to ramp up a hole covering, which spins and becomes a backboard for the chasing beaver who falls into the trap. The desperate beavers turn into a beaver Voltron or a bee Voltron, but they make the mistake of killing the Native American's horse in the process. John now finds himself on the top of the snowball while being chased by Bevoltron, but the rocket ship we thought had flamed out is still going out of control towards it. But the Voltron is able to avoid the rocket, which flies back towards the dam, and the movie reveals that the dam's destruction has led to the creation of Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Native American throws an arrow at the rocket and holds on, eventually slinging it back towards Bevoltron and harmlessly hitting it until the rocket falls to the ground and the thrusters come shooting out, creating a force that blows them all away. John approaches the merchant's shack on the snowball, which is about to crash into it, mirroring the scene in the beginning when he was on top of the barrel, an experience he uses to be able to put the brakes on the snowball before it crashes into the merchant's shack. He stomps on the snowball, and it's raining beavers. He marries the furrier. The merchant sneaks in a kiss, and they exchange tobacco spit. John successfully spits in the spittoon finally, and the movie is over. What did you think of Hundreds of Beavers?
First of all, that was a great synopsis. I think you included perfectly what you needed to get us through this series of incredible setups and payoffs. I love this movie, by the way. I don't know if it needs said. It'll become clear very quickly how much I love this movie, but there's just a series of intricate setups and payoffs in everything is foreshadowing. Chekhov had a hand in every scene of this movie. Like everything is coming back in one way or another. And I just love that. I just think that's a different kind of genius to be able to do that. And I think we see it occasionally generationally. I think Rowan Atkinson is great at this kind of thing, right? Like the Mr. Bean stuff feels a lot like this. Chaplin was great at this kind of stuff. Like there's this just this very specific type of humor, and this movie fills it at a time where we don't see a lot of stuff like that. And so, yeah, I had an absolute blast. I think the story behind the movie is also really cool. The guy's name is Mike, I think, Cheslick, Mike Cheslick, $150,000, puts together this movie. Something, that he dreamed up and wanted to do, gets together with his friends. They go to Wisconsin to film it. They film all of this stuff. They pay $10 a costume, to have these human rabbit costumes and beaver costumes or whatever.
Which I think is funny. They credit as mascots at the end of they don't call them beavers or skunks or whatever.
And so they go have a good time. He then holes up in his own beaver dam and does all the special visual effects. And I think he said something like there's over 1,500 different effects in this movie to put it together. And then just tries to sell it to people and eventually gets Fantastic Fest to kind of bite on it. They put it on the virtual thing. People fall in love with it. It starts to make its way through other festivals. It starts to become a hit. They do a tour in theaters. Every venue is sold out. And then all of a sudden it's in a bunch of actual theaters, and they're just trying to keep it in theaters as long as people, want to keep watching it. It's just one of those stories you're like, that kind of stuff still happens where somebody just wants to make a movie, finds financing of couple $100,000 and just goes and does it. I just love that kind of success story can still happen. So I thought that was really, really cool. I have a bunch of my favorite shticks, my favorite bits that I will go over at some point. But I did want to say, it's easy to miss that this movie is actually saying something as well. Yeah. And it really came out the second time I watched it, and it starts with the intro. It starts with those quotes really that begin us. The first quote is from St. Augustine that says, "Give me chastity, but give it to me tomorrow," or whatever it says. Or not yet. Yes. Give me chastity, but not yet. And what we're really seeing is the idea of going from adolescence to adulthood, right? He's very frat boy at the beginning of this, right? Even some of the dance moves he's doing and the beer thing, and he's chugging and it's just life is great. We're all partying. We're just going to party. And then what happens when that goes away? And he goes through the stages of life. He goes through a mentorship. He finds somebody that mentors him and kind of shows him the ropes and what to do. And then he has to earn it himself. He goes through, existential crisis, and then, finds his purpose in life, the furrier, right? He finds this purpose, and that allows him to work harder and to do more and to learn. You mentioned it already, but one of the big themes in this is about learning, is about, getting better at something, doing it over and getting better. And I found that, especially the second time through watching this, to be really revelatory, just that it's really trying to say something.
In a way, this movie shows that skill building even better than something like Castaway, which, you see Tom Hanks fail several times, but you don't really see him getting better. It feels like they just pass time and he just learned how to do that, I guess, over time or whatever. But this one keeps adding little wrinkles this didn't work, so let's try this next wrinkle, and so on and so forth. And finally, he becomes hilariously great at everything that he does. So
yeah, I really appreciated that even more the second time through. And the quotes go along with it. You read those quotes, and when they happen, when they drop, they very much are, about hardship, about work when it's time to work, and those kind of things. I also love the way the movie uses sound, because it doesn't have the same visuals as a lot of movies can have. So like, for instance, it uses, the gutting of the beaver, all the, the squelching sounds that are involved in that. Because, it's like pillows. It's like little pillows inside, but the squelching makes it feel like it's like really gross and disgusting.
Yeah.
And sound is really, really, really great in this movie. All right, here's some of my favorite gags.
Okay.
I love the rubbing of the rabbit's foot. I actually missed that the first time, that he grabs the foot with the bone in it and just kind of rubs it before he for good luck. I thought that was really funny. The spittoon missing thing is, I think, my favorite gag in the movie.
Yeah.
It's a great running gag. It serves a narrative purpose. It's really interesting. Just the creativity it comes to think of different ways to miss the spittoon, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really cool.
There's two things I love involved with that gag, and one is when he spits directly at John. John knows exactly what to do to not get hit by it. Put a spittoon in front of your face.
Yes, that's the best one. Yeah.
But then right after there's a point where he spits the tobacco into the gun, and then he shoots the gun, and it misses the spittoon there. But he's able to just throw the gun behind his head, and it goes straight into the rack. So like, he's got accuracy there, but he's not with the spitting.
Yes, it's beautiful. You mentioned the Rube Goldberg type machines he sets up, and it culminates with the fly and the frog and the skunk, and the what you so amazingly called a cave fight.
All of these things, like all of these things too. You don't really think much about the skunk and the frog and anything like that. There's some gags involved with the skunk and the frog, but you're like, okay, that's just a little gag. And then later on, it becomes such a beautiful set point to that thing. Anyway.
Yeah. You mentioned the story of the rabbits through the imprints of the snow. So smart. I loved it so much. The forlornness of getting to another set of swings, and only the child swings were swung on. Just it's such a great addition. I love that so much. Then of course he ends up eating them, which is just hilarious. The fishing snowman, right, that he sets up. The first time he comes back and the snowman has a fish on and its arm goes up, he goes, "Hey." like he's waving back at him or whatever. It just made me laugh. It just has all those moments like that just kind of make you laugh.
It kills me. Like, all the things with the snow creatures he makes are funny, and they keep on like doing like stream of consciousness things with them too, where like something will not be in the frame, and then they'll go and cut to something and then come back, and it's completely different when you come back. But the funny that snowman fisherman thing that was so funny to me is that the first time it catches a fish, the fishing pole just falls down into the water because it can't hold it or whatever. So his idea is to give the snowman muscles. That way it will definitely hold onto the fishing pole this time. And
it's so good. I just love his brain. The seppuku clothing cutting.
Yeah.
So much. The moment where he's escaping, I think towards the end, and he pees so that his piece of ice, is separated, and he gets to the other side and he goes, "Ha ha!" And then they all jump in and swim, and he goes, "Duh." Oh yeah, beavers can swim. I'm not as smart as I thought I was. The surreality of the double falling fake artifices, where the first one falls, and then when he gets back up, another one falls that had the fallen artifice on it, as if somehow that was behind the other one, or some sort of physics do not apply moment. It's just amazing. And then the other one I wanted to mention is when he is in the beaver dam. I didn't even notice this till halfway through the first time, and watching it the second time was such a joy. but that the way the walls are constructed, where the guards are looking out of the windows, is a beaver face. Like the windows they're in are the eyes, and then the guards watching him are the eyeballs. So like when he's going along and the guards go over to the one side, it looks like the beaver's looking at him the other way. Like, it's so smart.
I did not notice that at all. And now there's the part where when they look forward and they pull those blinds down, that's supposed to be their eyelids. Didn't even realize that until now.
I would go back and watch. It's really brilliant what they do in that scene, because even the cage that's below is the beaver mouth, and so it's like the spears or the teeth and that kind of stuff. It's really fun. It's just so clever. This movie's just so clever, and it's so fun to watch, and it feels like it's not like anything is trying to be hidden from you, but it feels like you'll just pick up new things. This is one of those movies I feel like I'll pick up something new every time I watch it. So yeah, I guess I didn't mention another one of my favorites is that he just has the club floating in the wind, and then the beaver goes in and just up, and automatically the club just kills the beaver, and then it goes back down into the next thing.
Yes,
it's just so.
There's so many. There's so many background gags in this too. I feel like this is going to be a movie that you watch and you're just going to keep finding things that you didn't see before. But but when we first see the master trapper guy go to the merchant's shack, he's negotiating with them or whatever, and then in the background you see his dogs, and they're all like doing stretches and stuff like that, and it's just a little detail. They don't have to do that, but it reminds you of the best of like something like Pixar would do. Pixar would do that kind of detail in the background. So never ending gags all the way through it, and very well done.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
All right. Well, I'm surprised that we got to this point and we still have some time. So but what is your super secret double feature for this, Aaron?
Be very, very quiet.
Secret? What secret?
Our dirty little secret.
I tell you something I've never told anyone.
I thought a lot about this, as I tend to do. I mean, the Gold Rush, like Chaplin's Gold Rush, is like the obvious one that feels like almost exactly like this, right? And so I didn't want to pick that, but I did want to mention it because if you haven't seen it and you like this, you will like that movie. It is very, very similar, and in both tone and scope, like what it's dealing with.
Yeah.
And so I thought of that. I thought, as I mentioned, like Mr. Bean, maybe a Mr. Bean movie, something like that. I went a little different direction. I went thematically, but also a movie that still feels like it has that, that comedy of like learning, getting better at something, those kind of things, by going through a repeating day. Groundhog Day is my double feature.
Nice. Nice.
I think this fits really, really well. I think the Bill Murray character is going on the same journey that the John character is going on. It's in a little bit a different way with a little bit of a different sci-fi twist, but I think it's very, very similar. So, and it's a great watch.
Well, when that's what it comes down to, right? Groundhog Day is a part of it is about what if you had time to learn everything, basically, and that's what this movie. That's all he has is time to learn all these different things. So yeah, very good. I love this pick. I was thinking, as far as live action Looney Tunes type stuff, right. I was thinking of Shoot 'Em Up, which I haven't seen in forever, but I remember it having a very Looney Tunes kind of feel to it. So that was one that I thought of. If it was me to come up with a super secret double feature, I would have probably brought that one up. But
I thought of like Roger Rabbit as well, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit as well, has some of that fun stuff in it too. But yeah, this is where I landed.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is going to be your turn. So what is the homework for next week, Aaron?
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that. I'm going to go with the history of violence. This is a movie that I don't think I've seen in a while. And sometimes when I make these picks, it's for movies that I think are transcendent that I just haven't seen in a while. And I want to go revisit and see, is it actually as good as I remember it being? So yeah, this is one I want to revisit.
I rewatched this 2 or 3 years ago, I think, and I liked it a lot more than I did the first time I watched it. And this is one of those movies that you never think of being based on a comic book, but it is.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, this is a really good movie. This has a lot of things to think about, and it's only an hour and a half too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this again for sure. This is a great movie.
And it's Cronenberg, right? Like it's, like it's probably one of his more accessible movies, but yeah, it's good stuff
for sure. All right, looks like we have time for a question or two.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth. I am listening.
So let's see. Let me go down here. I'm rusty at this, so we will try to do the best we can. Has a movie ever used a piece of pre-existing music, not score, that made you go out and buy that piece of music?
My first memory of doing this was with a movie I talk about a lot. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll make you and or Jeremy or both of you watch it on this show. Swing Kids. And the soundtrack for Swing Kids and the score is a lot of big band swing from, the 20s. And I immediately had to find a recording of the Sing, Sing, Sing that's on there. It's been in several movies. This is a very popular old school big band number. Benny Goodman. I also bought all of Benny Goodman's like greatest hits to listen to that stuff. So yeah, I very much went through a big band phase after watching Swing Kids. So yeah.
A lot of times for me, it's like music from a trailer and not really the movie itself. Although movies themselves have gotten me to go out and buy songs before, but the one that I really remember is there's two actually that I actually really remember. The trailer for Marie Antoinette has New Order's Age of Consent on it, and it's just that song playing throughout the entire trailer. I don't think there's any dialogue or anything, but I remember going, what the fuck is this song? And went out and bought it. And I love that song so much now. And then if the trailers don't count, Angel from Massive Attack. This is the song that plays in Go when Timothy Oliphant tells Sarah Polley to lift her shirt, looking for microphones and things like that. And that song was something that I went out and bought. Go actually has several songs that I have bought since then. The song that's playing during the threesome that's by Air is something that I bought much later on down the line, which is another good one. So
yeah.
All right, so it looks like room for one more.
All right.
You're going to an island. You don't know if you'll be alone. You only know you'll be there for a long time. You choose to take one movie you adore and can watch over and over forever. One movie you would use as a conversation starter, and one movie you would use on island dates.
Okay, so just to re-go over this is one to watch over and over that you adore, one that you would use as a conversation starter, and one for dates. I'm going with Singing in the Rain to watch over and over. This should not be a surprise. It is my favorite movie of all time. Passengers, I'm going with for the conversation starter.
We have a conversation.
The person I'm with on the island will never trust me again, and that's fine. And then 50 First Dates as the date movie, since we're going to have a lot of first dates. So there you go.
Okay. Oh, those are all very good choices. I would agree with this. Let's see. Okay. So, on a door, it's this, you picked your favorite movie. That totally makes sense. I'm going to go a little different and pick one that is not Back to the Future. And I'm going to go with Airplane on this one. For conversation, I'm going to pick The Conversation.
Nice.
And for the dates, I'm going to do When Harry Met Sally, which I think is probably one of the best date movies ever made. I want to go back a little bit here because I usually go to see what our chat is talking about.
Yeah.
And the previous question about the songs not score that people would buy, Polly Walnut says, Man of Constant Sorrow from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? James says Arcade Fire's Wake Up from the trailer of Where the Wild Things Are. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's see. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure got Josh into Primus, and now he owns everything Les Claypool has ever done. Shaggy says I bought the P. Diddy Godzilla song. And then when we got to the island one, we have several people doing one movie for all three. One is Shaggy says Princess Bride for all three. Castro says Hundreds of Beavers for all three. And we see a lot of more votes for Airplane and Princess Bride. And so there you go.
I appreciate the cleverness and the thought. I will just tell you that's the wrong answer. If you can take three movies, take three movies. You don't want to be stuck with just one movie when you could have taken three movies.
That is correct.
There you go.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for this week. Next week is A History of Violence. Can't wait to rewatch that one. Again, thank you, chat, for coming out and watching us talk about movies. And we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye. Be a part of the live show by being a member of the Sin Club at Patreon at patreon.com/cinemasins. Chat with us on the Cinemasins Discord at discord.gg/cinemasins or Cinemasins Twitter at Cinemasins, and email any comments or questions to Recotopia at cinemasins.com. That's RECOTOPIA at cinemasins.com.
Would you like to talk about Star Trek today?
Yes, let's talk about whistle speak, which I know a lot about.
Yes, the two of us trying to have a conversation about an episode of Star Trek Discovery we've never seen.
I have condensed the notes for Hundreds of Beavers down as far as I can, and I think that A, I'm not doing enough, and B, I've gone too far.
Somehow both.
Yes. So I don't know. We'll see how that works, but because a lot of stuff is not plot; it's all setups.
No, it's all setups and payoffs, man. It's like
that's what I'm saying. It's like there's not anything wasted. So
I'm very excited to hear how you have condensed the movie down. That will be very fun.
I don't know. I'm not going to be happy with it, however it happens, but because I'm going to be like skipping over things, and I hate skipping over things and then getting to a later paragraph and being like, oh, did you know that he also has snowshoes? Well, let me tell you about that. How did he get the snowshoes? Well, I skipped over that, or something to that nature.
Movie news. Did you see the news about Ari Aster Ari Aster's next movie? Did you see what he's doing next? He's doing a Western and listen to this cast: Joaquin Phoenix, who you might expect, loves working with Ari Aster. Joaquin Phoenix, Emma Stone, and Austin Butler. Like,
wow.
I want to see this movie now. Like, what does his Western look like? Pedro Pascal as well, I think is going to be in it. So
it's got to be great being one of these directors who comes out with a couple of really like high profile indie movies where you were definitely the auteur on that movie and there was no studio that was really telling you what to do, and like suddenly now everybody wants to work with you. It doesn't matter, like you can probably get anybody you want at this point.
I'm loving Emma Stone's choices right now. Like, it's just, it's like she's just kind of at this place in her career where she's like, I want to work with all the weird directors. I want, to take weird parts and try new things. And like, it's just, I think that's the way to go once you've kind of achieved that level of, power in the industry, is to kind of pick and choose like that. It's really cool.
Yeah. Do you have any theories on what happened with the Fall Guy and like why it wasn't a huge draw on opening weekend? I've seen a lot of discussion about it, but I don't know if I trust anything that I have seen on the speculation on it. Usually, it means that most people looked at that trailer and looked at the marketing and said, "Nah, I'll see if people say that it's good first before I go to watch that."
Yeah.
Uh, but there's a lot of like discussion about, I saw one thing that I was like, yeah, I don't know if that we're ready to talk about that right now. But there was one person on Twitter who was like, all the kids now just want to see stuff that's 3 minutes long and that's it. They don't want to see anything that's like a long anymore. And I'm like, well, that's a really narrow way of looking at it, because movies still succeed. Movies still do very well
Hmm.
when they are, a certain kind of product. And in this case, it did okay, but considering the budget, that's what everybody's concerned about, because the budget itself is something that's going to be hard for it to come back and make.
It's weird to think of expectations because the movie made 28 million this weekend. And I think the expectations were, oh, it's the summer kickoff weekend. Like, those movies in the past have done really, really well. But it's like those movies in the past have been, Marvel movies. You know what I mean? Like Marvel usually owns the first weekend in May, or has in the past. So I don't know. It's not that kind of movie.
This was supposed to be that Deadpool Wolverine week too. And fall, and the Universal came in and snuck in with that once they moved it. I think it's July, or what is it? July now that the Deadpool Wolverine movie comes in. But I don't know. It's a weird one, because it seemed like the marketing was perfect for Fall Guy, and it was coming right on the heels of Barbie for Ryan Gosling and Oppenheimer for Emily Blunt, and it looked really fun. But yes, like if they had made this movie for $60 million, everybody would be talking about what a success this is.
Right.
So I think it's a really interesting discussion. I wonder if it'll have some legs though. I mean, it does have to contend with the Planet of the Apes movie next week, but I wonder if people will be like, yeah, that was really good, go watch it. And it'll have a good, less than 50% hold.
Yeah, it should. I would imagine it will have decent legs through Memorial Day weekend. I would think there'll be enough people who will want to, see it over this first month that'll eventually go see it. But, a lot of kids are still in school. So, there's that going on too. So I don't know. It's also a good movie. So I would imagine the legs will be better because of that. Or I think it's a good movie, but we can talk about that later. But yeah, I don't know how to judge box office anymore. It's just completely changed. Like last year was like Super Mario Brothers, Barbie, and Oppenheimer, and and a bunch of disappointments. It's just like it's like it either has to own the public consciousness, or it's not gonna, or maybe it has long legs. Like Elemental last year was one of those that had long legs, right? Like it opened actually about this same range, like in this less than $30 million range, but it ended up making 120, 130 because it had long legs. So it can happen, but I just wonder if people are less and less likely to just get out of the house and go. But I don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard to know.
Be. I mean, I think it's a function of age, but I have been very reticent to go out as much as I used to. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that a long-standing war with traffic has finally started winning in the battle of whether I want to go out or not.
What was the turning point with the traffic?
I mean, Nashville became one of the most growing cities ever. Like it was something like 7 people were coming in per hour or something like that. And 7 new residents per hour. some nonsense. I don't even know what the stat was anymore, but it became a point where stuff that was, and yeah, and look, this isn't California, okay? Every time I talk about the problems of Tennessee, somebody's got to say, but it's worse in another place, and I'm like, that's not the point, is it? The traffic that used to be bad but like manageable has now become just, I feel like, and again, this could be an age thing. I feel like I take my life in my hands every time I come out and get in a car now because of the way people drive. I've dialed back what I used to drive at a comfortable speed. I've just become that slow old driver. And maybe that's what you just become after a while. You're just like, all right, I can't keep up with the kids anymore. I'm just going to drive. I'm going to drive I'm going to drive around the speed limit and let people pass me, and not worry about anybody else. Let them do their nonsense. So.
Yeah, I think I've been an old driver for a long, long time. I like if I find myself going 5 over, I'm just like, oh, what happened? I usually set my cruise like right at the speed limit or right above.
Yeah.
And yeah, people get annoyed by that, and it's just like, I mean, what do you want? What do you want from me?
Right.
Why are you in such a hurry?
I don't understand it either. Like I go 5 miles over the speed limit for the most part. And there's this one road around here that I do that on, and people will often come up on you, and you're like, dude, there's 2 lanes. There are 2 lanes here. Do you expect me to go faster? Is that what is going on here?
Yeah.
Like, to go to the speed that you want to, like, there's another lane, get in that lane and pass me. But they get upset a lot of times, and it's like, and you can see it in the way they jerk their car into the other lane and everything. It's like, you were expecting me to be going, you were expecting everybody to be going the speed that you're going.
I had an experience on a road trip recently that I've never had before, and it's one of those experiences where the further you get into it, the more you're like, they're doing this on purpose. Like they are trolling me right now.
Yeah.
Because this person, what they would do is they would stay in front of our vehicle as we were passing like semis, that kind of thing, and they would slow down below the speed limit. So they'd slow down to like 5 below the speed limit as they're passing, like, semis, that kind of thing. We'd get past, and they'd stay in the left lane and stay going that speed, and then we would move over to the right lane. Guess we're passing on the right, I guess, if we're going to go the speed limit. So I'd go back up to the speed limit, and then they would speed up to stay ahead of us till the next passing.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, what are we doing here? Like, I'm not trying to race you. I just want to not have to, like, I want to use my cruise control. Like, let me use my cruise control.
I don't get that either. I've run into that several times. I had that once happen where somebody got behind me, and then they got over and passed me. And then suddenly it was like, okay, now me going the same speed, passing that car. And then like, as soon as I start passing, they start zooming up again. And it's like, oh, okay, well, this is not a big deal. But then the real thing that happens is when you're like, okay, I'm just going to pass this car. I'm just going to pass them. I'm going to go 75 miles an hour and pass them. And they're sitting there going like 60 or something. And you zoom up to about 75, and guess what they start doing? 75.
Going faster. Like, yep.
What is the point of this? I know that it's to anger me, but how do you gauge that really from your distance? Can you see me getting angry? I don't know.
It's wild.